Welcome back to the 2016 MRDA Men's International Tournament. And Spider, you're going to have to use my microphone over here. We're going through a little bit of a technical stuff, so please bear with us while we get up close and personal. The very handsome Jumping Spider joining me here on commentary today, and we will be presenting to you Texas Men's Roller Derby versus Bridgetown Menace from Portland, Oregon, and they are battling today for the number 3 spot for 2016. Both of these teams being defeated in their second round, one by St. Louis and one by Your Mom's Men's Roller Derby. So today they will face off for third place. These two teams have already met before this year, so we're going to look to see whether or not it's a repeat of earlier this year, or if Bridgetown is going to be able to defeat Texas and take over that number 3 spot. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and meet our teams. From Texas, Texas Men's going to be wearing the red today. It's going to be 00 Matomic, number 151 The Enabler, 180 Shane Turner, 26 Eckleberry Jam, 28 Dr. Feelgood, 303 El Nino, 32 Kyle Divers, number 4 Tip, 448 Corey Pound, 505 Nick Putcher, number 6 G.I. Joel, 68 Diamond, 81 Larry Hopper, and number 9 Rhino.
And playing today for the Bridgetown Menace Roller Derby, number 101 is Freakstyle, 103 Loose Wheel, 12 Tommy Gunn, 17 Elysium, 216 Juke Blocks Hero, 33 Scott Free, 357 Demolition Man, 5 Eldorado, 512 Cosmo Damage, 56 M Jensen, 69 Don Juan, 82 Munster, 85 Shreddy Mercury, and 95 Defensive Destroyer.
All right, the clock has wound down to 0. We are getting ready for the players to take the track. This promises to be an incredibly aggressive skating bout. Texas not happy with their performance earlier, but they're fired up, they're ready to go, they're not going to let that knock them down. They want this win to maintain their ranking. It's going to mean the world to them. But Bridgetown improving their ranking from last year, 6th or 7th place last year. There's even some contention amongst the team members about that. But they are now competing for 3rd place in just a short year, giving the gatekeepers a run for their money earlier in a very low-scoring game. So I'm really excited to see what's going on.
Bridgetown played excellent yesterday. I was on with Just Incredible during their game. The only thing that we saw early on is that they had to minimize penalties, and they were down big early to the New York Stock Exchange before coming back 110-23. They outscored them over the second half of their bout yesterday to move on. And as you said, they gave the gatekeepers a fierce fight earlier today. So this is going to be a very contentious, very physical matchup for both two teams, not only playing for pride, but playing for a 3rd place finish. And they want to assert themselves early here in this game.
Right now the teams are being introduced on the track, so we've got a little bit of extra time to kind of go over our feelings about these teams as well as the information. From what I saw from Bridgetown earlier, some of you were listening earlier, I had the privilege of being able to call Bridgetown earlier this morning, and Bridgetown incredibly defensive in their play today. So they were able to match St. Louis in their defensive strategies, but their St. Louis Jammers just able to out-edge them and outscore them. And then St. Louis defense very similar, able to contain Bridgetown's Jammers. So if Bridgetown's Jammers can find a way around Texas defense is very similar, of course, to the top MRDA teams, all of them running very similar strategies. If Bridgetown's Jammers can find a way around that calm, settled, strong defense, they very well may come out with the win today.
I definitely think it's that. Bridgetown's defense is what gave them the win against the New York Stock Exchange. And for Texas to win, they're going to have to really pick apart that defense and make sure that they are not as compact and as fluid as they have been in this entire tournament. Defensive Destroyer has been a very, very solid defensive player, as well as Cosmo Damage. And for the Outlaws to come away with a victory here, they're going to have to minimize penalties, especially from the jammer position, and work within the Bridgetown defense and really break it up.
Indeed, Texas Men's Roller Derby now taking the track to their signature theme song, Cult of Personality, being announced by our in-venue crew at the moment. So hi, we're back. But yeah, I really don't think there's too terribly much more to say. I mean, both of these teams definitely deserve to be here. Both of these teams fighting hard this whole weekend, each having their own, individual adversities here and there. But as teams as a whole, they've been solid. So I really think if you're just joining us, Texas Men's Roller Derby versus Bridgetown Menace is going to be the game you want to watch. Just shy of course, our upcoming game, which is the championship game, St. Louis Gatekeepers versus Your Mom Men's Roller Derby.
And no, I cannot overstress that the first place game that we're going to have, the championship game, is going to be an incredible treat to watch. But speaking with Justin, who is Your Mom coach, a Des Moines resident, the way he was talking, and with St. Louis, there's so much more talent this year, not even as compared to last year. You look at the teams out here, this could be the championship game next year. There is nothing standing in the way of these two teams to raise their level of play in 2017, come back, run through the tournament, and maybe face off for that MRDA Grand Prize trophy.
Absolutely. I entirely agree with you. Every single word. Both of these teams so strong. And they just missed that 1 and 2 game by a small margin, both of them. So, I mean, things change every year. Teams improve every year. I mean, Texas was in Bridgetown's position the year prior to last, 2014. They came in, and Dent County Outlaws, before Dent County and Deception merged, had that number 6 spot. So they came up in the same way that Texas did. So that's another kind of a layer to the awesomeness of this game and how much it really means. But players are on the track. They've been introduced. Whistles have been blown, and we are about to start off with number 151, the enabler for Texas. And that's on the outside, number 82. That's Munster for Bridgetown. Bridgetown, Jammer Munster being held in the back of the pack. He's looking for an outside line. Meanwhile, the enabler forced to the outside and is looking for a clear inside, but it's Munster able to make his way through first. He's going to be the first lead jammer for this game.
Already you can see Bridgetown's defense is having an effect as they forced Munster to the outside. They're already around the second turn. And there goes Munster for the first 5 points of the game.
The enabler again forced to the outside in the second straightaway. He'll have to re-enter back almost into turn number 2. Munster re-enter the pack now, coming up against Texas's 3-wall. That's going to be braced by Dick Diamond alongside Matomic and Kyle Divers. Kyle Divers, the MVP blocker from last year for men's championship.
He was absolutely fierce last year. And on the other side, you're seeing is Bridgetown from last year to this year. You're going to see a lot of these 3 guys. Cosmo Damage, number 512, Tommy Gun, number 12, and 357, the aptly named Demolition Man.
Demolition Man really making his presence felt in their game earlier. A lot of significant blocks, a lot of effective blocking, and a lot of lateral movement on the track to break up those walls. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this is going to go.
Jam went almost a minute and a half. A very long jam to start, and Bridgetown comes out with 8 points. They draw first blood, and they lead here in the early going 8-0.
Lining up on the Beat Me Halfway jammer line is going to be Shreddy Mercury for Bridgetown Menace, and he'll be right alongside Dr. Feelgood for Texas. Again, Bridgetown in gray with purple, Texas in red with white. Shreddy Mercury looking for that inside line. He finds it. Dr. Feelgood trying to find that also. He rotates to the outside, now back through the middle. Shreddy Mercury now trapped behind the Texas rotating 4-wall. Trying for the inside line, is forced to recycle out. Up at the front of the pack is going to be Dr. Feelgood. 1 left to go. Stays on his toe stops in the inside line. Dr. Feelgood, lead jammer for Texas.
I got to share my quick Dr. Feelgood story. I got the chance to see him for the first time at Beat Me Halfway 2015, and I called him. He's got this lullaby move where he just lulls you to sleep. It looks like he's going one direction, and then all of a sudden he picks up speed. His hands and shoulders go one way, his legs go the other, and he just whips past blockers. He's a treat to watch in the open field. Using that move right there, stays in bounds, gets past number 17 of Bridgetown, and picks up the Grand Slam.
Grand Slam, and also he's on a power jam as well, as Shreddy Mercury is sitting in the penalty box. He's going to go through for another pass again. Offensive assist from Rhino. Dr. Feelgood, another 5 points on the board for Texas. Dr. Feelgood also the master at that one hand down. He is not out of bounds move. He's able to keep himself in position, so he's very aware of where he is, where he's going on the track at all times.
Texas is a state known for football, and that three-point stance is what keeps Dr. Feelgood in bounds on a lot of blocks that would throw a lot of jammers out of bounds and force them to recycle. Bridgetown jammer is now back on the track, so the power jam has come to a conclusion.
That's
Dr.
right.
Feelgood looking for space, gets around Elysium and calls off the jam. Another grand slam in the books.
Rhino attempting to push Shreddy Mercury out in turn number 2. He was unable to do so. Dr. Feelgood, seeing Shreddy coming along, decided I'm going to go ahead and call this off. I think he thinks a 15-point jam was enough.
That'll give the Texas men's Outlaws the lead, so we have our first lead change fairly early. A 15-point jam by Dr. Feelgood, and that will put him at the top of the scoring list here in our early going.
We're coming up on the 26-minute mark here. All teams have all timeouts. Of course, we are early in the game. Now on the line is going to be number 101, Freestyle. He'll be skating alongside, it looks like El Nino. El Nino looking for that middle line, trying to lean on the Bridgetown blockers hard to break that defense. Freestyle opting to come way back behind the Beat Me Halfway jammer line, but it's El Nino going through the apex, lead jammer. Freestyle pushed out in the same apex. He'll be forced to recycle on the outside as El Nino approaches for a scoring pass.
I've heard a lot of talk from the fans about El Nino, about his size and strength, durability, and you can see it right here. The defense for Bridgetown is their biggest strength, and El Nino kind of pulverized it on that last time around turn 2 right there.
El Nino, if I'm not mistaken, is actually transferred to Texas, and I believe El Nino was skating for Bridgetown at one point. So I had the opportunity to call these two teams when they were playing at Big O, and if I remember correctly, El Nino was a part of Bridgetown at that time.
Well, that's a big advantage to have for the Outlaws, is you have a player who knows the other team's strategies and how they operate. Texas going to extend their lead with a 5-point jam from number 303. 20-8 is our score, ticking down under 25 minutes here in our first half of play.
All right. One Bridgetown Menace blocker in the Rydell Skates penalty box. A big shout out to Rydell Skates, one of our sponsors here at 2016 MRDA Championships. Eckleberry Jam wearing red for Texas. Don Juan wearing gray for Bridgetown. Don Juan fighting in the middle of the pack. Eckleberry Jam finding the outside line. Lead jammer status going to Texas. Don Juan forced to the inside. He's going to be drawn back to recycle back behind Larry Hopper. Eckleberry Jam also recycled to the inside and around. A lot of cluster.
And that's going to send Don Juan to the penalty box, a high block penalty on the Bridgetown jammer, so a power jam now for Eckleberry Jam.
Eckleberry Jam, one of the newer members as far as the jammer rotation as well. So he's been, well, I'd say he's about in the middle right now. El Nino coming in afterwards, but Eckleberry definitely in the short time that he's been skating compared to a lot of men's skaters, he is vastly improved over the couple years, and I know his team is very proud of him. So calling that jam off, listening to the coaches, it's important.
Exactly. You have to not only be quick and have the physical attributes as a jammer, but you have to have the mental game in play as well, knowing when to call off the jam. I've seen a couple of games already this weekend where jammers either missed a call off or called off at an inopportune time and might have cost their team points and a momentum advantage.
Power start now for Texas as the Enabler took a line up on the Beat Me Halfway jammer line. Enabler and Texas going to try and stretch out the Bridgetown defense as he comes up against that Bridgetown strong three wall that we were seeing earlier against St. Louis. Enabler trying to get as low as humanly possible. Now an offensive assist from Texas. A sweep from the end of the out, and Enabler is going to be lead jammer for Texas. Don Juan now being assessed a cutting the track penalty. He'll take a seat in the penalty box, and now it's a power jam for Texas and the Enabler.
And if you saw on the camera, folks, I got a chance to talk to Rufio. That Texas men's team is going to hit the dab when the other jammer goes to the penalty box. So be watching out for those two hands in the air. And also a big credit to Dick Diamond, who threw a nice block to break up the Bridgetown triangle and open up the floor for their jammer.
Indeed, that waterfall move from the inside of the out, Dick Diamond, Matomic, so all of the blockers incredibly schooled in offensive motion. Also Rhino, so all of these guys seasoned derby players that know their game. we're going to have another power start for Texas. Number 28, Dr. Feelgood, taking the line for that power start. One Bridgetown blocker as well as their jammer in the right L skates penalty box. Rhino trying to open up that inside line for Dr. Feelgood. Still 2 blockers left to go, and Dr. Feelgood makes his way around on the inside. Dr. Feelgood, lead jammer for Texas, as Larry Hopper is going to skate his way around and take a seat in the penalty box. That's going to drop Texas down to 3 blockers. Not ideal situation now that Don Juan is leaving the penalty box. But Dr. Feelgood on his toe stops.
I love watching this guy. I love it.
Juking his way around. 5 points on the board for Dr. Feelgood in Texas.
It's like the blockers out there are oil and he's water. He just slips away from them. He's got all the moves. He never stays in one spot. The only time teams can really give him trouble is if you stop him and slow him down, because if he gets in the open floor, he is so tough to stop.
If anybody can stop him, though, it's going to be this Bridgetown defense. We saw it earlier. We've been seeing it all weekend. This Bridgetown defense is locked down. So Texas, I think, doing a good job right now to spread them out. If they can condense back together, get those walls back together like how they had them earlier today, I think they have the chance to stop Dr. Feelgood and that kind of loosey-goosey movement that he usually has.
Bridgetown opened up the game with an 8-point jam. Since then, it's been all Outlaws. They lead 36-8 here in our 7th jam. And now Shreddy Mercury going to take lead for Bridgetown. Let's see if they can capitalize and cut into this deficit.
Il Nino was trapped in the pack there in turn number 1 for a little bit, but he has gone ahead and made his initial pass now. But Shreddy Mercury is now approaching the pack, getting some offensive assistance from, I believe that's Juke Block's Hero. He enters the pack and goes ahead and calls it off. 2 points on the board. I'm sorry, that was not Shreddy Mercury. That was Munster jamming just then. Munster earning 2 points for Bridgetown. We're really far away, guys. And we have a team timeout on the track. They are called by Bridgetown. A great use of a timeout right now. Try and break up that Texas momentum. Get yourselves back together. And again, we can talk about that defense that Bridgetown really needs to stick together, and that's what's going to slow down those Dallas Jammers. Right now, we'd like to take a moment to thank some of our sponsors. And I know, Spider, you have all of our sponsors right there. So tell us who we need to be sending our thanks to.
I want to thank Pepper House Designs for sponsoring the 2016 MRDA Championships. Do your feet slide around in your skates? Go check out Pepper House Designs, a local supplier of all things derby. They are a sponsor of the Texas Men's Roller Derby as well. Pepper House Designs can get you hooked up with skate nooses, armbands, patches, and original official wristbands. Check out Pepper House Designs here in our venue and on the web.
Timeout has come to an end as Eckleberry Jam puts on the start for Texas. He's going to be skating alongside now Shreddy Mercury.
It's all on me out there, folks. I saw the 8. I called it early. One thing I did notice, and I mentioned earlier in the pregame, Bridgetown wanted to minimize jammer penalties to stay in this game. So far, we've had 7 jams. We're going into our 8th. Bridgetown has 3 jammer penalties, none for the Outlaws.
Jammer penalties were a little bit rough early on for Bridgetown, their last game as well. Shreddy Mercury able to make his way out of the pack, but he is not lead due to a no pass, no penalty. So lead is still available to Eckleberry Jam if he is able to achieve it. Meanwhile, until he can, Bridgetown is on a scoring pass.
Elysium right now really, really working on Eckleberry Jam. The always intimidating presence of Defensive Destroyer in there as well. That's going to be a penalty called against number 6, G.I. Joel. He will head to the penalty box, so Texas will be short 1 blocker on this next pass.
And Shreddy Mercury able to make his way out of the pack. He's going to go ahead and put 5 points on the board for Bridgetown, making this a total of 9-point jam thus far.
This is exactly what Bridgetown needed to counteract what had been a very, very strong Texas run. They also have not drawn any penalties in the last 2 jams. Shreddy Mercury with a nice hit there on Rhino. He finds himself in the clear. 14-point jam so far here for Shreddy Mercury, and he is not done yet.
Eckleberry Jam forced to recycle on the inside. He's going to come back in behind a couple of his own blockers. He's going to try and follow Rhino on that inside line, but he's not able to. Bridgetown closing that gap. But now Texas with 3 of their blockers together. And it's Eckleberry Jam finally on the inside on a skate, earning lead jammer status. Eckleberry Jam with 6 seconds left. He's going to try to put points up on the board before the jam comes to its natural conclusion. And he is able to put 1 point on the board, 4 additional points now for Bridgetown, making this an 18-point jam for Bridgetown, and we are now at a 9-point game.
That was a very, very big jam for Bridgetown, and Shreddy Mercury doing an excellent job. His blockers as well, able to clear space for him. And now Freakstyle going to try and continue that trend. He will be jamming here against the Enabler for Texas.
Another one of our sponsors we'd like to thank, Green Monster. If you're skating on crap, we didn't make it, and that's a direct quote.
That's been my favorite read of the weekend. Succinct and to the point.
Enabler trying to, again, that center line, but on the outside a little bit. Freakstyle being drawn back by Matomic almost all the way into the apex. Freakstyle, though, favoring that kind of run up to the pack. That way he can maintain that momentum, but Texas stopping him. Offensive blocking assist going to Demolition Man. Freakstyle now being drawn back by Kyle Divers.
It's like we're gonna
Enabler going to be being drawn back. And the Enabler, taking advantage of an out-of-play warning, is now going to be lead jammer for Texas. 2 rearmost Bridgetown blockers had been called out of play. Enabler watching that referee.
I mean,
and now a little mutual initiation between Diamond and Freakstyle in turn number 3. Freakstyle, though, able to get around. Enabler now also able to get around. 4 points on the board for Texas. Freakstyle approaching the back of the pack. Freakstyle coming up against Matomic. Nick and Diamond. And Diamond dropping Freakstyle on mutual initiation. I know it seems like those hits are really, really hard and like penalties should be called, but if both skaters initiate that contact, they can blow each other up all day long.
Well, that was definitely clean. Want to point out, we talked about the mental game the jammers must have. The Enabler on that last go-around made a great play, recognized that blocker was 20 feet behind the rest of the pack, came in. Bridgetown was looking for a call. Instead, they lost a blocker to the penalty box. Now Munster coming out against Dr. Feelgood. He's going to knock him out of bounds to the inside. He's going to have a tough job containing this jammer.
Although, again, that Bridgetown defense, Dr. Feelgood leaning hard but not able to move those Bridgetown blockers. Dr. Feelgood going to have to rely on something else to get around them. Now put outside on the inside. He's going to be forced to recycle all the way back behind the beat me halfway jammer line. All blockers and all jammers now cleared from the Rydell Skates penalty box. We do have full 5-on-5 roller derby on the track. No lead jammer yet, and we are 40 seconds into this jam. In turn number 2, Texas is trying to contain Munster the best that they can with a rotating 4, but they are going to have to drop a blocker as they just did. Tip now being dropped to maintain that bridge. Texas 3-wall now being anchored by Corey Pound.
Like both teams' defenses have let a blocker go, so a 3-wall as Dr. Feelgood was forced out and has to recycle.
And now some offense help by Bridgetown's number 103, Loose Wheel. Loose Wheel trying to rotate Texas around, but it's Dr. Feelgood finding the hole in the back of the pack on the outside. Lead jammer going to Texas.
Somehow, some way, he was able to extricate himself from the forces of Bridgetown's defense that held him back for over a minute. And now Texas is on a scoring pass, and now you get him in the open floor where he's so tough to contain. And it's going to be a penalty, a cutting the track penalty, called on the Bridgetown jammer at the tail end of the jam. So this will be a power start for the Texas Outlaws.
Dr. Feelgood, though, going to have to be careful because with that Bridgetown defense containing him for that long, he's got to be getting fatigued. So and maybe that's Bridgetown's game. Hold that jammer, fatigue them, because we've got a whole nother 17 minutes in this period and then another 30-minute period to go. So everybody's going to have to keep in mind to stay really fresh as the Enabler takes off in this next jam on that power start that you were talking about. Texas now completely on offense, trying to push all of Bridgetown, it seems, on the outside, trying to create a hole for the enabler.
Cosmo damaged with some contact, looked like outside the line. The enabler was looking for a call, didn't get it. Jumps the apex to get past the Bridgetown defender, and that will be lead jammer on this power jam for Texas.
Penalty box is now empty as Munster has been released from the penalty box. He's going to be approaching the pack here in just a moment. Enabler pushed to the outside, and he's going to be forced to recycle. Munster removing his cover from his helmet to make this initial pass. He's got 2 blockers left to go. Texas bridging out, and they are able to push Munster to the inside field. He's going to recycle all the way back behind Kyle Divers. Matomic recycling along with him. Enabler pushed to the outside. He's going to go ahead and call that jam off. 5 points on the board for Texas. We're still waiting on a score, if any, for Bridgetown. I don't believe he completed that initial pass.
Munster had an exceptional time working against the Texas defense there. It looked like for a second he was going to get through. He had a shoulder in between the triangle, but was unable to complete a pass.
We'd like to thank another one of our sponsors, Kaya. Kaya, performance-driven, high-end, and truly unique quad roller skates and plates. It's time.
Jam starts here, and right off the bat, Il Nino out of the blocks like a shot, and that will be lead jammer for the Texas Outlaws. And once again, a power jam as Shreddy Mercury heading to the box on a cutting the track penalty. Looks like Il Nino quickly back into the pack, calls the jam off, scoring 2 points. Texas extends their lead to 3 points, 58-31. Just over 11 minutes left here in the first half. And another jammer penalty for Bridgetown.
An interesting conversation happening on the track now between the Texas skaters. Perhaps it has something to do with why they called the jam off so quickly, being on that power jam. And we are now going to have an official review brought to us by Texas. So in this moment, while they're discussing the nature of that official review, we'd like to thank another one of our sponsors, Juice Wheels. Tested, innovative, and true. Juice Wheels wants you to stay with your wall and score all of the points. Not just some of the points, all of the points. We're going to get news from our head referee here shortly about the nature of this official review. We'd also take a moment and thank Moda Skates. They are 100% for the skaters, by skaters, unlimited color options through the Skate Create by Moda Skates. Stop by the booth and learn more. The Moda flagship is the Mojo carbon fiber boot, which are 35% lighter than leather soles. Feel the difference yourself and fly high with Moda.
Also, stop by the Moda Skates photo backdrop that we have here today. If you're in the building with us,
Texas is seeking an insubordination call on Bridgetown's jammer in the last jam.
Looks like we're going to have that announcement.
That announcement just came. We weren't able to discern what the head referee said, but we'll get clarification just as soon as we are able to do so.
Shady, an interesting point you brought up about Dr. Feelgood possibly getting fatigued, and with 2 tough defenses like this, and indeed a lot of defenses that we've seen this weekend, how do jammers and blockers conserve their energy over a 60-minute period to have enough left in the tank to go as hard as they can for that final 5 minutes of gameplay?
In reality, you slow down. So you've got to slow the jammers down. You've got to slow the speed on the track down. You have to play smart. You can't play individual games. You have to play a team game. You have to play together, and you have to know exactly where your teammates are at any given moment, and you have to rely on them 110%. But first and foremost, slow the game down. Have patience. It's a long game. It's a long ride. If you waste it all in the first period, you're going to have nothing left for the second, and you're going to get run right over. So Texas and Bridgetown both have to make sure that they take this first period cautiously, they analyze their opponent, and then they go into halftime, have a chat about it. Both of these teams are actually really good about going into the locker room at halftime, talking about it, and coming back out totally different teams. So that's definitely something that I would say that both of these teams are going to need to do to maintain fitness as far as whether or not they're going to be tired. And we do have our head official at this moment.
It's like a bit of last-minute discussion with the Texas captain.
the jam ref did not verbalize the track cutting call until the beginning of the turn. As such, there will be no insubordination call for the jammer.
Texas was asking for an insubordination call to be added to the Bridgetown jammer of record, who is Shreddy Mercury, stating that he did not leave the track immediately. However, they determined that the jammer did indeed leave the track in a timely manner, so no insubordination call will be issued, and Texas does lose their official review. Jam is back on with Dr. Feelgood on the power start from the Beat Me Halfway jam line.
And while the Bridgetown might not have lost their jammer for a full minute as opposed to 30 seconds, they are still running a very, very short pack out here, a jammer out, as well as 2 blockers, and Dr. Feelgood is through legally. He is lead jammer. Tommy Gunn now does return to the track for Bridgetown, so they will get into that 3-wall right off the bat. Here comes Matomic to try and break up the defense. Demolition Man in there as well, working on Dr. Feelgood, who took a bit of almost a head whip there as he tries to get around Demolition Man and is stopped in his tracks by the Bridgetown pivot. Cosmo damage.
Texas at the very last minute there on the pivot line, able to make his way. We thought he was pushed to the inside, and he was able to recycle backwards. But not sure if he entered the track ahead of the engagement zone just there, so he didn't actually cut anyone and was just restarting his pass, or if those front Texas blockers had been called out of play. It wasn't very clear, but either way, the game moves on.
It became academic after the call. Dr. Feelgood picking up 4 points. Texas extending to a 30-point lead, 32 to be exact, 63 to 31. 9.5 minutes left here in our first period of our third-place matchup here at the Lone Star Showdown, 2016 MRDA Championships.
Munster and Eckleberry Jam wearing the stars for their respective teams. Eckleberry Jam now forced to recycle on the inside. He's going to reapproach a firm 3-wall of Bridgetown Menace defenders. He's again going to be recycled, but in the meantime, Munster having his own set of difficulties with a brace 3-wall, and now going chest to chest with Tip as G.I. Joel and Rhino. Now G.I. Joel and Rhino trying to hold Munster back. Now into Rhino. G.I. Joel trying to chase Munster down. He's unable to do so. He'll have to return to the pack.
There's the good defense for Bridgetown once again. Elysium, number 103, Loose Wheel in there with Defensive Destroyer. And they have the jammer advantage right now as Munster, with a nice hop over the apex, and he will pick up the full grand slam. 5 points added to that total. Bridgetown with their first scoring in quite a few minutes as they increase their total, cut down this deficit.
Big hit from number 99, Defensive Destroyer on G.I. Joel, forcing G.I. Joel to the inside. And now Eckleberry Jam being sent to the penalty box. However, he did pass off the star. He passed it off to their captain, Tip, before he received Tip unable to score any points for Texas, but was able to complete the initial pass. 3 points, however, on that last pass for Bridgetown, making that a 13-point jam for Bridgetown. That's exactly what they needed to change the momentum.
That is the proverbial shot in the arm for the Menace, and that is a great jam, especially for Munster. He has gotten leads 60% of the time, and he is the leading point scorer for Bridgetown with 23 points following that jam. Back to action here as we are back on the track with Il Nino jamming for the men in red. Freestyle for Bridgetown. Freestyle style, not to double up, no pun intended, it's interesting in the fact that a lot of jammers shy away from going into the pack full speed. He seems to like it, and he's able to turn his shoulder and get into the middle of the defense rather than draw that many back blocks. Like there might be a call here. He is sent to the outside, and I must have put the jinx on him.
That back block that you were just talking about. Freestyle now going to the penalty box. And now a track cut being assessed to Il Nino. Both jammers on their way to the Rydell Skates penalty box, so we'll have a little bit of a swapperoo. No lead jammer this jam with 1 minute left to go, but also showing up to the penalty box two of Bridgetown's blockers can't possibly bode well for Bridgetown, especially since both of those blockers sat at the same time. They're going to leave at the same time.
And just as you say that, El Nino returned to the track. He is not lead, as you said before. Shady, want to point out, that is the first penalty on a jammer for the Texas Men's Outlaws. Eckleberry Jam did take a penalty on the last jam, but he had passed the jammer cap to his pivot, and so the Outlaws did not lose a chance to score points on the preceding jam.
Indeed. El Nino attempting to start a scoring pass of his own. He's being forced to recycle back into turn number 2. In the meantime, a track cut being assessed to Freak Style. He'll take another penalty in this jam, power jam now for Texas and El Nino.
That was an easy call for the referee. Kyle Divers got in bounds, hopped backwards, and it looked like Freestyle got up and didn't see where the last defender was. Came in bounds, and after a short delay, the referee called the cutting the track. So that's another jammer penalty on Bridgetown. That is their 6th so far, just in this first half.
We want to take a moment to thank Adam Skates and the new colored Falcon plates. The 16-degree Trek action is great for agility and stability. They are the choice of Bionic, Super Stopper, and you get your choice, of the Bionic Super Stopper or the Bigfoot Toe Stop. I've heard actually pretty good things. I'm not a skater myself, but I've heard a lot of skaters talking about that Bigfoot Toe Stop. So thank you again to Adam Skates, one of our sponsors for the 2016 MRDA International Men's Tournament. And we have an official timeout on the track. So in this official timeout, I like to go over the sponsor of our jammer line today. That's the Beat Me Halfway event. And that's in November, the 18th through the 20th of this year. Beat Me Halfway 2016 is a co-ed rope roller derby extravaganza. They have over 50 classes with over 30 coaches, 4 tracks, all 3 days, and it's for everybody. Skaters, officials, announcers, juniors, coaches. It doesn't matter what your place is in Derby. They have something there for you, and it is educational all weekend long. You can find them at beatmehalfway.com.
Back to action here as the Enabler will start this jam by himself. It's a power start for the Texas Men's Outlaws. They lead 70-44, under 5 minutes here to go in the first half. And I want to... Big hit there right now by the pivot defensive destroyer. He is knocked out of bounds, but forces the Texas Jammer to recycle. Looked like the Enabler was asking for a call, possibly clockwise blocking. Looked like he thought the defensive destroyer stepped back when he made contact with him. No call was made by the referee, so play goes on. Blockers for Bridgetown have been released from the Rydell Skates penalty box, as well as the Jammer Freakstyle, so both teams now eligible to score points. Freakstyle still looking to complete his initial pass. The Enabler has gotten through the pack one time, but he is having a ton of trouble with defensive destroyer. Now Loose Wheel getting into the act as well with Tommy Gunn and M. Jensen. The Enabler getting the shout from the bench to call it. He tallies 2 points and ends the jam right there. Very tough defense showed by Bridgetown there. However, they were unable to put more points on the board. Texas increases their margin 72-44.
At this moment, we'd also like to thank Pro Design Inc. They've been making protective products since 1986 and has everything for your protective needs. You can go to prodesign.com and check it out. All right, and yeehaw from Texas.
That was authentic, folks. I'm from Illinois. Shady has to do it.
Back to the action, and it's Shreddy Mercury earning lead jammer status for Bridgetown, the first lead jammer status for Bridgetown in several minutes. Well, I'm sorry, in a couple of jams, rather. Still trapped in the back is Dr. Feelgood behind that Bridgetown defense. Again, we were talking about Bridgetown trying to wear out Dr. Feelgood as long as humanly possible. Shreddy Mercury now being forced to recycle back into turn number 1, almost by the pivot line. He's going to meet a 3-wall of Dallas. That 3-wall is going to, and we have a star pass sneakily over the wall to Kyle Divers. Kyle Divers now going to take that star, and he's going to turn up the jets, try and make up some of that lost time. Shreddy Mercury, though, sees him coming. He said, no way, Jose. That's 3 points now for Bridgetown.
Shreddy Mercury with a salient call off there. He has 21 points on his total, -3 on the differential. Kind of a striking difference right now. Texas obviously in the lead. But the Eckleberry Jam has been held in check mostly. Dr. Feelgood having a very good first half, 30 points and 27 up when he has been jamming. Il Nino and the Enabler with 16 and 20 points respectively as well.
And they're off like a herd of turtles, folks, as Eckleberry Jam wears the star for Texas this go-around. And stuffed kind of in the middle of everybody is Munster, who's wearing the star for Bridgetown Menace. And we're still, I guess, trying to figure out where everybody's going to land, and now it looks like we figured it out. Munster's going to go ahead and take with Texas the pivot line. Eckleberry Jam now pushing and moving the Bridgetown wall forward. G.I. Joel having to drop to maintain the pack.
Both jammers really trying to pick their spots, and the defense is trying to float through the track and stay organized. A nice block out to keep Munster on the track. That was G.I. Joel. Bridgetown now going to reorganize as the Eckleberry Jam was up. No pass, no penalty called, and he is lead jammer.
I believe the lead jammer was issued before the no pass. So that will stand. Eckleberry Jam now on a scoring pass for Texas. On the inside, though, with a little bit of a star stash is Munster. Munster now completing his initial pass as the pack speed increases for a little bit, but then it seems to have slowed down now in the apex. Eckleberry Jam trying to find his way through with a little bit of offensive assist from Rhino and blasted to the outside by Jukebox Hero. And we're going to go out of an official timeout on the track. The Texas captain, Tip, TJ Binkley, out there to speak with the officials, but we don't know if that's going to happen because the officials seem to already be talking about something.
That was a block right at the tail end, right as that first set of 4 whistles was going off on the Texas Jammer. So it's a good bet that the officials right now are discussing that last block. We will see what the result of it is in just a few moments.
In those moments, we'd like to thank another one of our sponsors, Left Turn Clothing, Derby owned and operated, high-quality athletic apparel for men and women where fashion meets function. We also want to thank one of our local sponsors, Resurrection Skates. They're a full-service skate shop located here in Dallas, Texas. Custom setups, discounted used gear, and all the gear you need to get rolling. Derby, outdoor sessions, speed ramps, doesn't matter. They've got it for you at resurrectionskates.com.
Coming back to action here on the track, very short official timeout. Only result that we saw was a 4-point jam from Texas. So Il Nino will be jamming for the Outlaws against El Dorado, his first jam of this first half. El Dorado out front with 2 men to beat. And he is out lead jammer. El Dorado, he was able to get around Shane Turner.
That's the first time I've seen El Dorado jam today, and I believe he's not a regular member of the jammer rotation. Bridgetown having about a 6-member jammer rotation earlier at one point. So El Dorado maybe providing the change that Bridgetown needs to kind of trip Texas up a little bit, and it seems to be working as El Dorado puts 5 points on the board for Bridgetown.
And Il Nino forced to the inside, and when you can get an emergency jammer out there, just someone to spell your regular rotation, if they can pick up any amount of points for you as out of play was called, and El Dorado going to grab another grand slam, that is nothing but a benefit. Il Nino forced out once again, and El Dorado going to be called for a back blocking penalty. He will head to the penalty box. It's going to be very close.
And we have a star pass now again to Kyle Divers. Kyle Divers receiving the star from Il Nino. Period clock has expired as the Bridgetown blockers played do-si-do in the penalty box. Big hit in turn number 1. Kyle Divers with 5 points more for Texas as the jam clock winds down. 20 seconds left in this jam.
The fortunes could not have switched any more quickly for Bridgetown. They had a jammer in waiting, El Dorado doing a very nice job, but took a back block penalty. Meanwhile, Bridgetown blockers were heading to the penalty box en masse, and right then they take a jammer penalty, and now it is Texas with the advantage. As the 4 whistles sound and we go to the half, that's going to be an even 10-point jam. Sorry, 14 points for Bridgetown there. So they do win the jam 14-10, but they go into the half down by the score of 86-61. Very exciting first half, Shady, but the Outlaws had the advantage for most of the 30 minutes.
They have had the advantage for most of the 30 minutes, but Bridgetown with moments of brilliance, and those moments of brilliance are what has made this score so close. So when we get back, I'm going to have a penalty count for you, and we're going to talk about kind of where each player individually stands. We'll see you back here in about 11 minutes.
Thank you, folks. 86-61 is our score.
Hi, everyone. We are back here at the 2016 MRDA Men's International Championships. I'm Shady Hawkins, joined here by the always lovely Jumping Spider. And before we get started, we just want to give a shout out to a brand new Derby watcher that we know is out there watching right now, Tyler P. on YouTube. You've been introduced by your friends, and you've now caught the bug. You don't know it yet, but we do, because Derby is infectious and it's an amazing, amazing thing. So, and we know you like hockey, you will love roller derby. So stay watching, stay tuned. You're about to see some of the best men's teams in the world.
I mean, it's great. It's a young man from Ottawa, Ontario. You have the Roller Derby Men's World Cup in Canada, in Calgary this year. A great showing from Vancouver, and I know those are two different provinces from Ontario, my man. But if you're already a hockey player, as Shady said, we want to get you out here on the quad skates as ASAP.
So going back to the game, we've got about 2 minutes left before we come back from halftime. I want to talk about some penalties that have been occurring. So Texas with only 9 penalties total, Bridgetown 23 penalties total. So that's definitely going to be a fraction of what's going on here. Although with as big of a penalty differential, you would expect to see a larger score break. Only a 25-point score difference between these two on the board. Texas at 86, Bridgetown 61. So, but Bridgetown with more skaters taking trips to the penalty box. Number 56, that's Jensen with 4 penalties. Number 216, Jukebox Hero with 3. 357, Demolition Man with 3. And number 512, that's Cosmo Damage, also with 3 penalties. Track cuts and what we would call the P, or kind of pack penalties, if you will, being the struggle there for Bridgetown. And then for Texas, 4 direction of gameplay blocks. So Texas really kind of have to watch their probably offensive blocking style and make sure you cut down on those penalties. And then for Bridgetown, the track cuts coming on both jammers and blockers, and then of course the out of plays being usually mostly a blocker and within the pack dynamic style of penalties. So we're really going to make sure that Bridgetown kind of locks down that pack. But like we were talking about before, as far as penalties go, both of these teams are excel at going to the locker room and coming back out a different team in the second half.
Well, Bridgetown is going to have to use, I hope they use that halftime to talk about different strategies for jammers. Their jammer penalties, they're losing that battle 8-2. Don Juan, especially one of their primary jammers, has been almost effectively neutralized in the first half, and we did not see him score a point, and he went to the box twice. On the other side, Munster is leading the way for Bridgetown with 23 points. He's scoring at about a 4 points, just under a 4-point clip, 23 points in 6 jams. And Shreddy Mercury with 21 in 6. They're going to have to increase that points per jam average and stay out of the penalty box in order to have a chance in this game. It's only a 25-point deficit, but it's going to look like 50 if they cannot stay on the track. So
all right, and we are back to gameplay. As right on the line, El Nino is pushed to the outside. He's going to be recycled all the way back into the second apex. Meanwhile, up at the front of the pack is going to be Shreddy Mercury taking on Texas Wall of 4. Penalty box brought to us by Rydell Skates is empty. Full complement of blockers for each team, and it's going to be El Nino on the inside line in this first jam of the second period, lead jammer for Texas.
Shreddy Mercury able to break out of the pack as well, so both jammers are free from the danger. El Nino avoids a block from defensive destroyer, but he's pushed out by M. Jensen. That is 2 points, so a 2-point initial jam. Texas drawing first blood of the second half. They lead 88-61. Things just underway here in our final period of play. We want to remind you all to stick around for our final game, the championship of the 2016 MRDA Championships. Your Mom Men's Derby out of Des Moines, Iowa, taking on the reigning champion, St. Louis Gatekeepers from Missouri.
And right now, Munster now pushed to the inside. He's going to recycle all the way back behind his own jammer. Munster able to get back up. He didn't go all the way out. Kyle Divers trying to stop him, was unable to do so. Munster now lead jammer for Bridgetown.
This is what Bridgetown needs. They were able, even though they had some trouble with jammer penalties, when they had their jammers working well, they were able to rack up points big on single jams. Dr. Feelgood with the star stash. He is sent out of bounds. He is not lead, as we said. Now Munster back into the pack. Looks like he's going to bide his time. Calls off the jam.
Not sure what the strategy was there for Munster as Dr. Feelgood was approaching the pack. Maybe it was a psych out, but linking hands with his blocker, number 512 Cosmo Damage, as if he was going to assist in blocking there for a moment, but then quickly decided otherwise. Now we're going to see Eckleberry Jam wearing the star for Texas, and Freakstyle wearing the star for Bridgetown Menace out of Portland.
Late scoring change at the tail end of that jam. 3 points awarded to Texas and Dr. Feelgood. So the score stands at 91-66. Freakstyle especially had a lot of trouble in that first half. He had a very in-your-face, just kind of rushing the pack style. We'll see if he tries a different strategy, goes a little bit more of a finesse game. Right now the lead jam does go to Eckleberry Jam. He's going to pick up lead for the 5th time in 6 jams today. So that's an 83-point percentage. Texas doing very well at getting lead. All of their jammers, except El Nino, operating at a lead jammer percentage above 60%.
Larry Hopper going to take a trip to the Rydell Skates penalty box as Eckleberry Jam is forced to the outside. He's going to recycle around, but finds the inside line behind Rhino. Able to clear his way through for a 5-point grand slam for Texas. And an elbow call on Rhino now, as Rhino will join Larry Hopper in the Rydell Skates penalty box. Texas dropped down to 2 blockers, Tip and Corey Pound. Tip and Corey Pound going to have to keep Freakstyle
not giving up.
Back. And now an assist from Tommy Gunn, but it's Eckleberry Jam able to scoot his way through. 5 more points. Tip and Tommy Gunn in the back of the pack having a little bit of a one-on-one conversation.
So to speak, as our jam does come to a conclusion. Nice jam for Eckleberry Jam and the Outlaws. They cracked that century mark. 102-66 is the score now. Shreddy Mercury heading out to the Beat Me Halfway jammer line. He will be opposed by the enabler. We're going to have a late blocker switch for Texas as Nick Putcher came off of the track.
And now lead jammer for Bridgetown is going to be Shreddy Mercury. Shreddy Mercury, usually no stranger to that lead jammer status. Shreddy Mercury now on a scoring pass as he comes into Dallas's defense, getting offensive assistance from 103 Loose Wheel.
That is only the 3rd time getting lead for Shreddy Mercury out of 8 jams, a 37.5% average. He is leading here, however, and he's trying his best to score as many points as possible. Calls off the jam prior to a hit from Kyle Divers, and he does get 4 points. So Bridgetown cutting into that deficit ever so slightly as they were able to hold the Outlaws from scoring points.
We just want to remind everyone that if you're here local with us, or if you're thinking about coming down for the championship game here next, we are having our after party, which after parties are legendary in the world of Derby, at O'Shea's Irish Pub. Happy hour all night, $10 buffet and live band karaoke. Don't miss it. And we're not going to miss El Nino jamming now for Texas. He's jamming alongside Munster. Munster now on the outside, just coming out ahead of El Nino. Lead jammer. Both of these jammers now turning on the jets, pack speed increasing as Munster tries to make his way around the track as fast as he possibly can. Texas moving forward to the front as these jammers approach. Texas going to slow the pack down. Munster coming through, able to put 2 points up on the board for Bridgetown. And Munster also giving the Texas guys a little bit of an attaboy. Texas giving it right back. So a lot of times you see these guys, they're really aggressive and really fierce with each other on the track, but off of the track, that's something that we really love about the MRDA is that all of these guys, know each other well. It's a very close-knit group of gentlemen that play this sport, and off the track, they can laugh with one another just as well as they can hit one another.
It's all about competitive respect, and that's what I love about MRDA championships. These teams go about as hard as they possibly can, but during the game and after the game, it's nothing but love and respect for your opponent. Dr. Feelgood opposing El Dorado, and we said El Dorado, who had a 14-point jam prior to getting a penalty at the end of that first half, looked very, very good out on the track, and it looks like he might be in the rotation for Bridgetown in the second half. He is already out ahead of his competitor, Dr. Feelgood. Has 2 blockers to beat. Trying desperately to work his way around Nick Putcher, but he's forced out of bounds. Great job by 505 in red. And that enables Dr. Feelgood to get out of the pack first. However, he is not lead jammer. El Dorado is, and the crowd is screaming for him to call off the jam. He has not done so yet. He's trying to get through the pack. This might be a mental error on the part of the Bridgetown jammer as Dr. Feelgood is through the pack cleanly, and he has the natural grand slam.
El Dorado may not realize that he is lead jammer at this point. I think he finally sees his bench. He's shaking his head. Yeah, I don't think he realized he was lead jammer, but when he did, he called it off as quickly as possible. But he did give up points to Texas. 5 points on the board for Texas. But El Dorado, definitely a wild card, a wild factor, having to do with the jammer rotation. And that's something that we were talking about during halftime between the two of us, is that maybe adding a wild card like that, someone that Texas isn't used to, is going to be a wise decision. And it proved well earlier with that 14-point jam. But going forward, Enabler now squeaking his way through. He's going to earn lead jammer status. Enabler, a very fluid, one of the very graceful style skaters with high apex jumps for days.
And another jammer who, while he has agility, quickness, and his speed, does not shy away from contact. He hit almost every Bridgetown blocker on his way through the pack there. Does it again as he goes through and around defensive destroyer Elysium and Cosmo damage before being knocked just barely to the outside of the track.
Indeed, and Texas now on a power jam as well, as Shreddy Mercury is sitting in the Rydell Skates penalty box. Enabler coming through again for a scoring pass. Saving it by that 1 foot, showing great track awareness. He's going to go ahead and call this jam off, keeping Shreddy Mercury and 2 of Bridgetown's blockers in the penalty box, making this a power start for Texas. And not just a power start, but a strong start with a lack of blockers from Bridgetown.
The Rydell Skates penalty box is full of gray shirts. This is a moment of truth for Bridgetown. They have shown that their defense is top-notch and can hang with anyone here at the tournament. Now they're going to have to do it with 2 blockers on the track against a strong jammer in Il Nino. He does go down under a challenge from Loose Wheel, and now Bridgetown's penalty box going to clear out somewhat. They do add Tommy Gunn to the track. Pack speeding up and breaking out.
Shreddy Mercury trying to fight through the center of the pack viciously, but El Nino finding an opening. Going to be lead jammer for Texas. Rydell Skates penalty box clears, and then immediately Kyle Divers in the penalty box. And now again, a penalty to Shreddy Mercury.
And that's a very tough penalty to take. You do not want to take unforced errors, as Il Nino went down under a challenge from Tommy Gunn and called off the jam. But Shreddy Mercury right there, as we will have an official's timeout, almost got around the block to the inside, but just dragged his skate, trying to slow himself down. That skate contacted the infield, and he went back out onto the track before he could stop himself, took the cutting the track penalty. So it would be a power start for the Texas Outlaws.
Our crew head referee, Ogre, calling the coaches and the officials all into the middle now for an official timeout. I'm pretty sure it's going to have to do with the conduct, perhaps, of that last jam. We saw a little bit more fierceness, a little bit more intensity. Perhaps, dare I say it, a little bit more attitude from both of these teams. So it looks like he's trying to have a conversation with the coaches and with the officials, trying to get everybody to remember that, you know, we are all friends here.
I mean, you don't want to see, as I said, mutual respect between not only the skaters of opposing teams, but between them and the officials. We understand that this is an athletic game where you're putting a lot out there in terms of sweat and
occasionally blood, but we do have to clean that up.
Right, and you hate to see skaters give any of that attitude to the officials and the referees out there who also put their time and effort and travel finances to get to these tournaments.
Texas captain Tip having a conversation with one of our OPRs, Judge Injury. Both of these teams now going to go ahead and start off.
Pivot in the box for the Outlaws. Power start for them as well, as Shreddy Mercury is remaining in the penalty box for Bridgetown. 124-72 is our score, 19:40 remaining in this game.
Eckleberry Jam being pushed out by one skate. He'll have to recycle back into the apex. Texas now trying to play a little bit of offensive help for Eckleberry Jam. Kyle Divers being released from the penalty box. 3:57. Demolition Man on penalty now number 5 as he makes his way to the penalty box. Eckleberry Jam pushed to the outside, but he is going to be lead jammer. He did not go all the way out, and he had already passed the person who had pushed him out, and it was a no pass, no penalty, but since he had already passed that person, lead jammer has been awarded. He's on a scoring pass now. Shreddy Mercury returning to the track for Bridgetown. Shreddy Mercury with a hip check to Eckleberry Jam. Kyle Divers trying for a hit as well. Shreddy Mercury trying to pull Eckleberry Jam all the way back. Eckleberry Jam said, no way, Jose, I'm just going to go across the track and come in behind you. Now both of them, Shreddy Mercury now playing a little bit of defense himself as Texas funnels up on the outside line to keep Shreddy Mercury from going anywhere. They drop Kyle Divers for a second, but then Kyle Divers forms himself back up. Shreddy Mercury just kind of seems like resting. And a track cut drawn by Jukebox Hero on Eckleberry Jam. Eckleberry Jam now going to the penalty box. This is only his second trip to the penalty box. Third jammer penalty for Texas the entire game. Texas now having to play an exclusively defensive game.
Very smart play by Jukebox Heroes. You saw Shreddy Mercury kind of floating in the pack, playing a little bit of defense. In pro wrestling terms, it looked like what is known as a rest spot, where one of the players in the match will just kind of go to the corner and stop, especially in a multi wrestler match, triple threat, something like that. Looks like now Shreddy Mercury going to be called off the track, and he will head to the Rydell Skates penalty box. So unfortunately, it looks like the strategy did not go Bridgetown's way. I think they're asking for an official review, and now an official review has been called by the Bridgetown Menace.
I love that you made a wrestling reference, because if you don't know, I also am a part of our local wrestling family. So
I did not know that.
I volunteer my time for VIP wrestling.
Are you behind the mic, or are you in the squared circle?
Oh no, I take care of folks in the back as a massage therapist. So I handle some medical duties.
I looked. I thought it was like she could give a hip toss.
But there's a lot of crossover I found between Derby and a lot of different worlds. Wrestling being one of them. Jukebox Hero asking for noise from the crowd, and he's getting it in both positive form and maybe not so positive form from the Texas fans. But there are plenty of Bridgetown fans in this audience, don't get me wrong.
Oh, without a doubt.
A lot of folks here would love to see Bridgetown knock Texas off. Clock is stopped at the moment at 17 minutes and 38 seconds. We have
Bridgetown is contesting the cutting call on their jammer in the previous jam.
Weren't able to completely make out what they're contesting, but it does have to do with the Texas jammer. So we are going to take a moment and discuss something about the Texas jammer. We will bring that back to you as soon as we are able to do.
I want to thank all of our fans listening in on the stream of the 2016 MRDA Championships Lone Star Showdown, whether you're going via YouTube or WFTDA.org. Your tournament stats are available at http://stats-repo.wftda.com.
So apparently everybody thinks we're hitting on each other.
What, because I asked you about the hip toss?
No, I guess it's because we're friends.
Well,
So, which is funny because we actually just met today.
it's true.
We just met today, but announcers, we share a bond together, but can certainly tell you that it's absolutely nothing like that. But even though I do think Jumping Spider is incredibly handsome and wonderful, but that's just because he's a good guy. But like I said, all of us, not just the guys on the track, but all of us in roller derby are really close. It's a very, very tight-knit bond, and we have our head official right now.
Upon review, it is confirmed that the initiating blocker from Texas was forced out before Bridgetown's jammer re-entered the track. The track cut penalty will be overturned, and Bridgetown will retain their review.
It looks like Bridgetown was seeking a track cut on their jammer to be overturned. It will, in fact, be overturned, and Bridgetown will retain their official review for this period. And we move on. Eckleberry Jam still in the penalty box for Texas standing, though. And now a power start for Munster, number 82 for Bridgetown.
Not only a power start for Bridgetown, Munster has all his blockers out on the track, and he is quickly lead jammer.
Munster, a seasoned jammer for Bridgetown. He really knows what he's doing and knows his job. All of these jammers at this level know how to make their way around a track. Munster going to be forced to the inside. He'll recycle all the way back. Diamond trying to draw a cut. Didn't quite get there fast enough. Munster now going up against Nick. Munster shouldering his way through. 4 points on the board for Bridgetown.
Bridgetown Menace now down 50 points as we tick down to 17 minutes on the clock. 126-76. Munster going to grab another 5 points as he is working his way around. And this is what Bridgetown did in the first half. What they've been able to do all weekend when they've been down. It looks like they're out of a game, and then they pick up a very big jam to get themselves right back in it. Now number 68 on the Texas Outlaws going to be called to the penalty box. Looked like he extended his arms there on the jammer in gray.
But from what I understand, I believe there was no penalty called. Therefore, it must have been mutual initiation. Eckleberry Jam now making his way back around. But he is now pushed again to the outside. Defensive destroyer trying to give a little bit of offensive help to Munster. Munster taking his time there for a minute. He tried to save it on his toe stops by Kyle Divers. Kyle Divers able to knock Munster out, and now he's going to draw him backwards. Munster going to go ahead, though, and call this jam off. 19-point jam for Munster and Bridgetown from Portland, Oregon. So much momentum coming from Munster in that jam. Munster now the high scorer for his team with a lead percentage of 67% of the time, points at 49, and his differential is incredible at 32 points, which basically means that he's not giving up points in comparison to the jammer that he's on the track with. And now here we are, haven't seen Don Juan on the track in several jams. Don Juan now returning to the track to jam for Bridgetown. Meanwhile, it's the Enabler trapped in the back. Enabler trying to force his way through the center and trying to roll to the edges, but is unsuccessful in doing so. Rydell penalty box empty now. Don Juan forced to recycle on the outside. Rhino and G.I. Joel going to draw him back. G.I. Joel drawing him back now while the rest of Texas plays a little bit of offensive assistance.
Don Juan somehow able to keep his footing as he is having major trouble in the back. And M. Jensen actually came flying out of the penalty box when Don Juan was trapped behind the Texas triangle, not the usual Texas triangle of Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. Both jammers are out now as the Enabler is lead. Don Juan just behind the Enabler looking for a bit of... Don Juan takes a shot there from Corey Pound, and he is sent rudely to the inside. The Enabler forced to recycle behind Jukebox Hero as well.
And here we are again, trapped between turns number 1 and 2 in that apex. Turn number 1, I swear, is made of quicksand. It happens to everybody. But the inside line found 4 points on the board for Don Juan and Bridgetown. Jam comes to a close, and we're going to see another 4 points for Texas as well. 4 for 4 jam. So much work for a single scoring pass.
Definitely, you can see the defenses are on point there. But both jammers did a nice job.
Is it that? And now we have an official timeout on the track. Ogre is calling the outside pack referees inside to have a little bit of a chat. What I was going to say, is it that the defense is still great, which I believe it is, or is it a combined factor of the defense being great, and now as we're at 13 minutes and 37 seconds, we're more than halfway through this period, are these jammers getting tired?
Oh, well, that cannot be doubted. That cannot be stressed enough. Justin and I have talked about it a lot this weekend. This floor is sport court underneath skate court, and that is very, very soft, and that takes a lot of speed out of the equation for jammers, and a lot of these jammers this weekend across the teams rely on speed to get them moving and to find gaps in defense rather than having to
Gray
physically
jammer, Gray
push
6'9",
their
will
way
be
through
issued a
defensive
skating out of bounds
walls.
penalty
The
in the
defense
previous
is
jam.
helped by that floor, so they've had a great time this weekend, really just pounding on jammers and being able to move them from side to side, which jammers honestly just want to go to a straight line.
All right.
Like
5 seconds has been called. We are starting on a power jam. Don Juan starting in the penalty box. Dr. Feelgood now from the beat me halfway jammer line. Shane Turner calling for Dr. Feelgood, opening him a hole. Dr. Feelgood now fighting, keeping that one-hand protocol in effect, only putting one hand down beyond that line and able to pick himself up. And a blast in the apex by Nick. And Dr. Feelgood gonna earn lead jammer status as Don Juan is released from the penalty box.
Dr. Feelgood with the ultimate Texas salute, dropping the Cactus Jack 2 guns as he got through the pack. Unable to stay on the track there as Elysium pushes him out. But number 28 and the Outlaws are in firm control of this matchup. 130-95 is the score right now. Dr. Feelgood on his scoring pass. Don Juan has been released from the penalty box, but it will be Dr. Feelgood catching 4 points and extending the Texas lead.
Shane Turner taking a seat in the penalty box for Texas. Star pass complete now to number 99, Defensive Destroyer. Defensive Destroyer, I believe that's his first time receiving the star pass for Bridgetown. Loose wheel, trying his best at the very end to stop Dr. Feelgood and push him to the outside. He's unable. 4 points more for Texas. Defensive Destroyer making his way through. 4 points for Bridgetown, and the crowd in-house goes berserk.
I mean, this kid has been playing great defense all weekend, but you can tell he's not typically a jammer, but he got that star pass, and as soon as he made his way through the pack, the crowd erupted. Great to see from all of our fans here on both sides, Bridgetown, Texas, and all of our fans all over the country and all over the North American continent.
Not just the North American continent, the world. So men's roller derby is truly an international sport.
Worldwide, obviously, I apologize to the Southern Discomfort fans who came here all the way from London.
Southern Discomfort putting on a great show as well, and I'm not just saying that because we're bringing them up. I love those guys. They had a great showing last year, have a great showing this year, but we have action going on the track. Bridgetown, again, lead jammer. El Nino being pushed to the inside. Action in the apex, much to the displeasure of Texas fans here in-house. El Nino pushed again to the inside. He'll be forced to recycle.
Tommy Gunn once again on the offensive, trying to sweep Texas blockers out of the way. Shreddy Mercury has the lead, but he has been slowed down somewhat, and now the Bridgetown Menace and Jukebox Hero are going to draw a penalty on El Nino, and it looks like those two players had some words for each other as number 303 was leaving the track. We'll keep an eye on that for you folks. Meanwhile, we'll keep an eye on Shreddy Mercury as well. He's got the grand slam, and Bridgetown is on a power jam here. They have reached that century mark, and do not look now. They are only 35 points down. Shreddy Mercury trying to tiptoe that inside line, and he is going to call off the jam. Looks like another 4 points in hand.
This is only El Nino's second trip to the penalty box, making this 4 jammer penalties for Texas total. Conversely, Bridgetown Menace at this point having, that's going to be 11 box trips total for their jammers. So Texas keeping their jammers under wraps. So definitely understandable why Bridgetown is so excited to see El Nino sitting in the penalty box.
Well,
Munster gonna start on a power start, takes a running start. He finds that inside line with offensive assistance, and he is a lead jammer for Bridgetown. This is exactly what Bridgetown needs right now. Change of momentum, and it's been going for 3 jams straight.
Watch the 2 numbers in the teens in the gray shirts, 12 and 17. Tommy Gunn and Elysium are executing their offensive blocks with precision these last couple of jams, and they've allowed their jammer to get lead and have the opportunity to score points unopposed. Munster on another scoring pass, working his way around Kyle Divers, has 1 man to beat and cannot beat. That's Dick Diamond. He's knocked out of bounds. El Nino going to take another trip to the penalty box. So it'll be a power start for Bridgetown as they pick up the grand slam there. And once again, they cut into this lead. Bridgetown is on a run over the last few jams. They have totaled 18 points to 9 for the Texas Outlaws, and they find themselves down 139 to 113, 8:45 on the clock.
And we're going to have a team timeout called by Texas, and I was just about to say, if I'm Texas, I need to call a timeout right now to stop this momentum, and they do. So great time management there. So Bridgetown did it in the first half. Great timeout, time management. So now we see Texas, both of them now, having taken a timeout. This game, that's it. This game.
It's something that can render you speechless, right?
It really is, and that's hard to do. I talk a lot, which is why I do what I do. But I'm really excited for both of these teams right now. Like I know, obviously, folks at home, maybe not everybody knows, but a lot of folks at home know I am one of Texas's home announcers. But whenever I step onto the mic, of course, there's no bias shown whatsoever. Both of these teams I am so proud of, because I got the opportunity to see them last year before I was even an announcer, before I was anybody even important in roller derby, and I'm not even that important now. I've loved watching both of these teams grow, and I love watching the momentum shift and change and flow. And now again, we see Bridgetown making the decision to change things up and put El Dorado on the line for a power start with El Nino still in the penalty box for Texas.
This paid dividends for them at the end of the first half when El Nino clocked that 14-point jam, as we did say. However, they did take a jammer penalty. And Shady, we're coming down to the magic hour here, what I talked to you about in the first half. We are under 10 minutes, ticking down to that 5-minute mark. Both teams have to hold on to the energy that they have for one final push. Bridgetown obviously with the deficit, but the Outlaws cannot let up. Any slips here, and the Menace have shown themselves fully capable of making a comeback. This is going to be an exciting finish. This
is going to be a very exciting finish. I'm actually intrigued to see that they put Tip out there with the pivot stripe on his helmet. Tip, not an unaccomplished blocker, not a pivot or a jammer. So, but with El Nino going into his 3rd consecutive jam, I'm surprised they made that decision.
The fans are getting up as the Texas Outlaws were dangerously close to out of play.
Now both being sent, Tip and Rhino, on out of play penalties. Not showing very good awareness of where they were on the track. They had been called and given that warning, and then they had blocks that did create impact. So those penalties sending them to the penalty box. El Dorado trying to enter the pack on a scoring pass. He calls it off. We're going to look for points, and they are going to give a full 4 points for Bridgetown. But he earned those points.
Oh, most definitely. He was falling down when he called off the jam. Credit the referee. Inside the track, Bambi Lance was right on checking to see whether those blockers were inside or outside of that zone of engagement. This is going to be a big test here. They have the jammer on, the enabler for the Outlaws. Nearly a false start for the enabler as he's going up against Shreddy Mercury, but only 2 blockers.
And Shreddy Mercury making quick work of those 2 blockers. He's going to be a lead jammer for Bridgetown. Again, Bridgetown on that momentum, but enabler, one of the fastest skaters, if not the fastest skater for Texas, quickly closing the distance. Enabler very well may have points here, and he does. 3 points to Bridgetown's 4. Extending Texas to 142, Bridgetown to 120. We have a 22-point game, 6 minutes, 20 seconds left on the clock. And we have an official timeout on the track for a little bit of track maintenance. There's probably looks like there's some sweat or some liquids on our sport court. Whenever we see that, we do take a moment to make sure that it is clean and dry in the interest of safety for our players.
The crowd has been into this as they well should. Bridgetown has closed the gap down, but credit the enablers. You said one of the fastest players, not only on the Outlaws, but on the floor. Speed thrills, and that's what enabled Texas to get those all-important 3 points and turn what could have been a 4 points to nil jam into only a 1 point margin against them. And they hold on to this lead, 142 to 120, 6:17 left here in our second half of play.
Dr. Feelgood on the outside line, going to go up against that three wall of Bridgetown's up in the front, but it's going to be Munster pushing hard on the pack, forcing them forward and taking a tumble all in the back of the pack. Everybody pops themselves up as quickly as possible. Dr. Feelgood pushed to the inside, going to be recycled into turn number 1. Meanwhile, Munster right on the line, pushed out by Tip. Munster now going to have to recycle back behind the entire Texas wall. He's going to look for a line open, but it's Dr. Feelgood that finds the inside line. Lead jammer for Texas. Whistles are blowing, and that's going to send one of the Bridgetown blockers, number 12, Tommy Gunn, to the penalty box. Dr. Feelgood again, the inside line, his friend. Points for Texas, a 4 total.
Now this is where you have a choice if you're Texas. Dr. Feelgood has lead. Does he want to call off the jam? His defense has been doing a good job of blocking out Munster, and they are doing so once again. But I believe, we have to check and see, I believe he might be on a scoring pass. Dr. Feelgood, of course, on a scoring pass. Already 4 points in the book for him. But he has a very tough defensive wall to get to. Texas wants to run clock as we come down to 5 minutes, but you don't want to have Munster score any points.
And Dr. Feelgood off the back of Corey Pound, and Munster just burst through with speed. 4 points, and now
Munster's going to have to watch out here. His foot contact at the inside. He was aware and went back out of bounds to recycle. Looks like Dr. Feelgood is going to let this one run to its natural conclusion. Clock management, the all-important factor in any roller derby team's arsenal. And Dr. Feelgood going to be called late for a multiplayer block.
Something that you really don't see very much on jammers, but lead has been lost. Luckily for Dr. Feelgood, or unluckily for Texas, that the jam had come to a conclusion. 4 points had been awarded now to Bridgetown, 8 points total thus far. We may see more points being added by the officials. We're not sure. But there's discussion perhaps of an insubordination. 5 seconds being called, and an insubordination will be issued to Dr. Feelgood. He has 2 penalties. He's been informed of that just now. Disbelief on his face. So Dr. Feelgood will sit for a full minute, while Freakstyle back on the line for the first time in a long time, now lead jammer, and on a now less than a minute power jam.
I had the chance to talk to this young man for just a moment in the hallway outside. I could tell he was flushed with his team's play this weekend, especially today. Even though they took a defeat, they were very happy with their play against the champion St. Louis Gatekeepers. He's been out of the jammer rotation all second half. He's going to be on the track alone with the Texas Outlaws jammer in the box for a full 60 seconds. This is a big moment for him. He puts up the grand slam and calls off the jam. Very heady play from the youngster. Bridgetown is not even close to being out of this one. 150 to 129, under 3 minutes left to go in our second half. Shady, if you have the Anasa tablets handy, it's time to break them out.
I do, but I'm just so enthralled by everything that's going on. Officials taking a moment to have a conversation. 5 seconds is called. Officials will return to their positions. Shreddy Mercury now taking a power jam on the inside line, taking a page out of Dr. Feelgood's book. Lead jammer going to Shreddy Mercury. Shreddy Mercury going to look to close this gap.
Cosmo Damage took a low shot there, and one of the Outlaws blockers is going to go to the box as Shreddy Mercury able to pick his way past Tip. That's another grand slam.
Dr. Feelgood with an apex jump makes his initial pass quickly. Shreddy Mercury giving marching orders to his blockers as pack speed does increase. Dr. Feelgood turning on the just as quickly. Freddie Mercury calling off the jam, putting 2 points on the board for Bridgetown, and we're gonna have an official review on the track as we are now under 2 minutes, 7 points for Bridgetown, that jam. We now have a 14-point game as the officials are gonna have a conversation with, looks like Tip, who is the captain for Texas. We're gonna clean up the track a little bit too because these guys are pretty physical and they like making little angels.
Honestly, Shady, a lot of tournaments, you see some teams come out for the third place game. I remember specifically in the Olympics when you have pool play team games, some teams came out for the third place game and you could tell their heart was not in it, their energy was not in it that they had if they would have been playing for the gold medal. None of that is taking place here at this 2016 MRDA Championships. Both of these teams are leaving every single thing they have out on the track, and now we're going to have an official review called by the Texas Outlaws. Official review called by the Texas Outlaws here. But as I was saying, both of these teams are going to put every single thing they have on the line. They're fighting like everything they have for that third place spot.
Well, that third place spot really is that important because it's the difference between a medal and no medal. You go home with nothing or you go home with something. We're going to hear from Ogre here in just a moment about the nature of the official review.
Like he's going to have some conversation with the officials in the middle. Also, fans, if you're loving this, you are definitely going to enjoy our championship match. The reigning champion, as we're going to come back to the track here, as Ogre has the microphone.
Texas is requesting a skating out of bounds penalty on Bridgetown's jammer at the end of that jam.
Texas is requesting a skating out of bounds penalty on the Bridgetown jammer at the end of that jam, so the officials will discuss it. In the meantime, I want to take another moment to again thank a couple of our sponsors. Rydell Skates, who is the sponsor of our 2016 MRDA International Penalty Box. In that penalty box, we've got Larry Hopper standing, and we also want to again thank Beat Me Halfway for sponsoring our jam line. Beat Me Halfway, a huge 3-day event that is an educational plethora for everybody and anybody in roller derby, no matter what part of roller derby you exist in, whether it's on skates, off skates, in any capacity. It's an amazing Midwest event. We also want to make sure that everybody knows that after this, if you're excited about this game, to stick around, especially those of you who are newer and who are like Tyler P on the YouTube feed.
He's our man.
You are going to be so pleased with the level of derby that you're going to see next. Our number 1 and number 2 seeded teams go at it for the number 1 and number 2 spots. The St. Louis Gatekeepers versus the Your Mom men's roller derby, and they are from Des Moines. Both of these teams, no strangers to the number 1 and number 2 spots. They've been coming to champs for years, so this is definitely something that they are seasoned to do. And in the meantime, these two teams that we have down in front of us, I said it earlier, this game. Hashtag this game. Hashtag Lone Star Showdown 2016. And we're going to have Ogre discussing the results with the captains and coaches from their respective teams at the moment, so we'll be keeping an eye on him when he gives us the response.
It was an incredible moment, just to go back to last year, to watch St. Louis break through that wall. You could see it. It was just a river of elation that broke through to them and their fans when they won last year.
Upon review, the jam ref confirms there was contact to Bridgetown's jammer prior to the end of the jam. There will be no skating out of bounds penalty issued to Bridgetown's jammer. Additionally, Red 8-1 is being expelled for a gross misconduct.
So that's going to be a little bit of a double whammy with the results of that official review. First and foremost are that there was contact made to the Bridgetown jammer. Therefore, no skating out of bounds penalty will be issued. However, because that will not be issued and the officials were able to review it, red number 81, who is Larry Hopper, has been expelled for a gross misconduct. Going back to the game, we have Munster fighting his way out. He's going to be pickup lead jammer status. It's going to be the enabler wearing the star for Texas. The enabler trapped in the initial straightaway. Munster now on a scoring pass as he's kept behind 3 of Texas' blockers. He's now forced to the outside and is going to have to recycle back behind Kyle Divers as Tip has now been released and is in the penalty box. Tip being substituted for the expulsion being awarded to Larry Hopper. And now Tip pushing and giving offensive assistance to the enabler, trying to get the enabler out. The enabler forced to recycle on the outside. Tip now going one-on-one with Munster with a little help from Kyle Divers. These two gentlemen have been playing roller derby for so long. We have less than a minute left. Enabler gonna go ahead and recycle. Texas is out of play. They're gonna have to let Munster go. Munster putting 5 points up on the board, 9-point game as 40 seconds left on the period clock. Texas gonna have to stop Munster here if they wanna keep their lead. Munster gonna go ahead and call the jam off. He did manage to do it with more than 30 seconds on the clock, but it looks like Bridgetown is gonna go ahead and take that timeout anyway. So Bridgetown timeout right now, 7-point game with 28 seconds left on the clock. This is crazy, guys.
What else can you say? Bridgetown has held Texas scoreless for the last 2 minutes to 3 minutes of this game. They were able to utilize that 1-minute penalty, and I was just thinking if Dr. Feelgood was in the box for a minute, it would be devastating to Texas, and he was. Now they have lost one of their main blockers, and they were able to manage the clock effectively on that last jam. The officials right now in the middle of talking it over. To our man Tyler P out there, I know you're new to roller derby. There are only 28 seconds left showing on the period clock. However, the jam clock can go to its full conclusion of 2 minutes if the lead jammer so chooses, or if neither jammer is able to definitively and legally get lead.
And that is the end of this team timeout. Shreddy Mercury on the line alongside Dr. Feelgood. Dr. Feelgood, the top scorer. Shreddy Mercury, not the top scorer, but not by very much. Shreddy Mercury forced to recycle out on the outside, back behind Kyle Divers. And it's going to be Dr. Feelgood. 1 left to go. Dr. Feelgood going to be lead jammer for Texas. Dr. Feelgood with 13 seconds left.
And he's going to let the clock
Dr.
run.
Feelgood is going to do the equivalent of taking a knee in derby. He's going to slow down, turn around, and take a look at that penalty clock. Shreddy Mercury being pushed to the outside by Rhino. Dr. Feelgood now calling the jam off. And the crowd goes crazy. There's so much noise here in the venue. The players on the track can barely hear themselves. Right now we have an unofficial final for 150 Texas, 143. It is unofficial at this moment. These officials are going to want to make sure they go over everything, go over the math, make sure that these scores are accurate and correct. Also, we do have to make sure that neither of these teams want to use an official review, which Bridgetown still has an official review. You can use an official review. So we are still waiting, and it has now been declared by our jam timer as final. Texas men's roller derby, Texas Outlaws 150, Bridgetown 143. I just want to say that I know that this was a very important game for Texas, not only to maintain their rankings and for the obvious reasons, but also because Kyle Divers, number 32, will be retiring. And this was, from what I understand, to be his final game with Texas men's. So I know that this is something that was very important to him and to the team as well. So from me to you, Kyle, excellent job, excellent season. It's been a pleasure knowing you, and it's been a pleasure watching you skate and calling you skate. Right now the crowd is giving Texas the tunnel of love for their victory and their bronze place medal. But not to take anything, and I mean anything, away from Bridgetown. Bridgetown is one of the best up-and-coming teams I have seen in roller derby in the last 2 years, and I am so excited to see where they're going to be next year for champs.
They gave this Texas squad all they could handle at home in a very, very partisan venue with the fans behind them, and no discredit to the Bridgetown fans at all. They came out in force, and the Texas Outlaws did not score a point for the last 3 minutes of this game. Dr. Feelgood got lead jammer and elected to run the clock out, but the Bridgetown Menace made this the close game that it ended up being, only a 7-point differential. When at one time Texas held a lead of 130 to 95, they were able to hold them to 20 points for a majority of the second half. Excellent, excellent job by Bridgetown Menace. I cannot wait to see them in 2017. They're going to make waves. There are going to be some major shakeups by courtesy of these two teams and definitely the other teams that we've seen here, Vancouver, Southern Discomfort. They're going to cause some shockwaves in the world of men's derby next year.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Now, what we're going to see coming up next is your #1 gold medal determining game, St. Louis Gatekeepers versus Your Mom Men's Roller Derby, coming up soon, so make sure you stay tuned here on WFTDA.tv. We're at the 2016 MRDA Men's International Playoffs. My name is Shady Hawkins, he's Jumping Spider, and we'll catch you later.